Well, good late afternoon on the East Coast. It's more early mid afternoon on the West Coast, and we got it both covered here today on Soccer in the City. I'm Glenn Crooks, joined momentarily by Roberto Abramowitz and also John Rojas. So, some of the things we're going to cover today. I was out at training, and good to be there. Good to see what was happening, the injured players, what they were doing. So, we'll get into some detail about that since three of those injured are all starting 11 type players and try to sort out where they might end up getting back into the lineup. New York City coming off the 6-0 victory over RSL. Obviously, we'll cover that and see how that might impact leading into Toronto FC, a much improved club. A couple of managers fired recently, including one today in MLS. Keaton Parks, he'll be a halftime interview guest on the New York City FC network for our broadcast this Sunday. We're going to play a couple of clips from Keaton, who has come back successfully from a very serious injury. So those are just a few of the things that we're going to cover here. And why not? And there they are. Oh, we promised we would do it this way. And there it is. Just John Rojas in the middle, Roberto Abramowitz on the right. Do you guys see it the same way? I'm on the left. Is that the way you see
Yes,
it?
yes, you
We
are.
do actually.
Okay. Well, let's go over training today first, and then I think it will elicit maybe some comments. We'll take comments and questions. We already got one, at least one that came in before we started here, but it's Maxi Morales on the side training. He's got a rib issue, and he's not playing this weekend. Uh, Maxime Chanot. Now, both Chanot and Morales, they were in the gym for an extended period. Then they came out later and did some more plyometric stuff than anything, and kind of stop and go. Chanot had the ball a little bit. I would guess just by observation that Chanot's a little ahead of Maxime Morales, but Maxime Chanot, we wouldn't expect to see him either. He had a serious eye injury that was as Melvin, the athletic trainer, put it, friendly fire. He got elbowed accidentally by a teammate, a Luxembourg teammate, during a friendly against Bulgaria, and he hasn't been able to play since. In fact, he had to stay in Bulgaria until the swelling went down because they wouldn't let him fly because of the altitude and what happens
Too
with
much
the
friendly
swelling in
fire
there.
lately, Glenn.
They're yeah.
Something happened with Maxi Morales was friendly fire too.
Yeah, that was friendly fire as well in a training session. And then the third player, so those two, it's really difficult to tell exactly when they'll be back, but I wouldn't expect all that soon. So, they'll reestablish and reevaluate next week leading into the San Jose match, which will have some interest due to their coaching situation. And then Thiago Martins, who went down in the RSL match, which when he went down, it looked like a non-contact sort of knee injury, but his knee is fine, and apparently it's hamstring, and hamstrings are hamstrings. We don't know what grade it is. Again, he was out on the side doing some work, nothing with a ball today, so you would think that he's highly questionable for the weekend. So Vuk Latinovic was taking most of the reps at right central defense for New York City FC. And so that's an area with not a lot of depth at this point due to the injury to Chanot, now the injury to Martins, and Samuel Owusu, one of the homegrowns who was projected to spend most of his time, if not all of his time, with New York City FC2, though he's been traveling with the team. And I would think if Martins can't go, he'll at the very least be on the bench for this game against Toronto on Sunday. So despite all the good news, John, 6-0 on the weekend. Roberto, it's now you're trying to sort out these injuries and down a playmaker, down a center back who, along with Alexander Collins, you have to say is one of the best pairings in the league. And then Chanot's replacement and a guy who's a designated player, he looks to be down too. So it's not good news on the injury front, but good teams provide the depth. And for a younger player, an inexperienced player, you said, this is your opportunity, man. Go get it.
That's exactly what happens, Glenn. I mean, first you try to build a deep roster for these kind of situations because no team is exempt of having these situations. Some teams have them more than others, and the matter of injuries and absence are deeper for some teams than others, but every single team had those elements on their season. So you first try to build a team as deep as possible, and then, like you said, you got the youngsters, and they had to take advantage of every single opportunity that they have hands on, and that's what the club is expecting of those players. And by the way, let me know when I take this off because I just want to take it off.
No,
It looks very good, by the way.
we're gonna
So
have a talk.
explain what it does at least. What is it and what does it do?
There we go.
So
Go
at
ahead.
least you can get your royalty.
John was so excited. John called me about this device, which he'd been using and understood it, and he said, "You might be interested in this for your show." So that's the Serious
Yeah,
XMSC show.
and we missed one opportunity because we should have right now a picture of Jeremy Ebovise and a picture of Omar Gonzalez, who are the two MLS players that are using it right now. And
why are they using it? Go ahead.
There's a few brands out there. There's one specific that I mentioned to you, but the idea of this is a collar that, as you see, is around your neck, and the idea of this is it creates some pressure on the veins, and for that reason the player had more blood running around their skull, right? On their cranium, they have more blood running, and that protects them from impacts. Especially, this is important for players that have been under concussion protocol because you're taking care of not having to relapse soon. You want to, you're totally out of the protocol, but you go back to competition, so you want to take care of yourself. And others decided to do it just because maybe they had concussions a few years back, and now they got into this technology, so it's good for them. So the whole idea is
you wear it during competition, during the competition.
Yeah, it's totally it's different on the sense that, of course, for competition it's slimmer and it's easy to manage. It's more like it's not a tape per se, but it's as slim as a tape. So you don't feel it that bulky like this one that I'm having right now. But that's
Okay, can you
idea.
please explain a little bit more what it is and what it looks like for those of us who are going to wind up listening to this on the podcast and not watching the video?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So for the higher competition players or athletes, is a kind of a tape, like a collar that you put on your neck. It's around your neck. It's not totally around. You have a little entry in front.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a headset that you drop down on your neck.
Like you drop it down.
Yeah, you drop it down on your neck, and that's what I thought you were wearing, actually.
And that's what it is. It looks like one of those tapes that players are using now for muscular tension and all that. So now they're using it because but that the device has a little electric signal that is the one that is creating some pressure on the veins and generating more blood running through the head. That's basically the idea. So it's kind of like this.
Yeah.
It almost looks like a headphone. So let me describe it.
This
it
one is
looks like
bulkier.
an over-the-ear headphone, but instead of putting it on your ears, you put it on your neck, and it comes a little bit towards the front. Doesn't fully surround you, but it gets closer to the front of your Adam's apple. And so with electric stimulation, it helps blood flow, and
well, tell me this.
Protect you. Not bad.
And it doesn't. Sorry, Glenn. It doesn't limit your movement or your range or anything.
Well, tell me this: was Ebobisse, was he wearing it when he scored on that free kick?
Yes, of course.
All right, there you go. The blood was rushing, and he freaking hit a bullet into the upper nines.
Yeah, I saw.
All credit to the
Omar
collar.
Gonzalez wearing it.
Q collar. Yeah.
I saw Omar Gonzalez wearing it a few weeks before Jeremy.
Wow. Yeah, but Ebobisse's free kick didn't exactly help Almeida, did it? Or maybe it did. Maybe he wanted out and that helped him on the way out.
But he wanted out. That's
wanted out. Yeah,
I want to get to those two situations. Almeida with San Jose, which is important to New York City FC because they play the Earthquakes a week from this weekend. And then Hernan Losada was fired today by DC United, and New York City has 2 matches with them coming up. Their next road match, in fact, New York City will be at Audi Field on May the 18th. But let's go 6-0 over RSL. And a special treat today, everybody. You're going to see, I think you're seeing all 6 goals. Now, we share our time here. We're all part of the New York City FC network. I'm on the English side. John Rojas is actually more on the English side than he is on the Spanish side these days. And
he's our hybrid.
He is our hybrid
of the.
Well, listen, I got the final, right?
Yeah, you got the final. And but here are Roberto Abramowitz and Ariel Hood and some of the highlights from the match on the weekend.
Gran atajada de McMahon, realmente una muy buena atajada del portero suplente de Sol.
Aquí está un remate y gol de New York City. El remate de cabeza para el gol de Tati Castellanos, su primero del año. En el tiro de esquina, New York City arriba 1-0. Prolonga para Magno, cruza la media cancha por el lado izquierdo. Ahora filtra un balón. Aquí está Thiago Andrade. ¡Gol! ¡Gol de New York City! Thiago Andrade, usando esa velocidad enorme que tiene, le gana la defensa. El pase es perfecto. Y New York City está arriba 2-0. Arranca Castellanos. ¡Gol de Tati! Y jugó en Toronto con la costilla rota. Aquí está un balón filtrado. New York City se mete y gol. Thiago Andrade, segundo del partido, 4-0, la velocidad mata. A la primera vez fue al lado derecho, a ver dónde va, arranca, para, tira y gol. McMath la alcanzó, pero la empujó solo al poste. Tati Castellanos tiene su triplete. New York City arriba 5-0. Jugador que... un error y gol para New York City. Tati Castellanos tiene 4. Error de salida, se la regalan a Castellanos. Manda el tiro, es desviado. Se mete al arco. 6-0. Y Castellanos se convierte en el primer jugador de la historia en anotar 4 goles en un partido.
All right, man. Well done, Roberto.
That's the first time you might have heard me, Glenn.
That's not the first time I've heard you. I listened to the clips, and Tanner Smith, our young friend with the on the digital side, and who produces a lot of these things, and along with Jose Medrano, they do such a great job behind the scenes when you watch those. And but that is great. That is really well done. Well, let's. I'm going to play just one from Maddie Lawrence and I.
Yeah, let's not do 12, please.
No, this is only 34 seconds. And nice through ball now to Thiago Andrade. One-on-one with the keeper. And it's a brace for Thiago and a 4-0 lead for New York City. McGrath coming off his line. Thiago from outside the area just drilled it past the RSL keeper.
A terrific ball from Santi Rodriguez, but that South American triumvirate once again, the young talented player. Santi Rodriguez is the player who touches or passes the ball in, but Silas Magno as well, he jumps out the way of the ball. It's almost a little dummy.
So tying the club record 6 goals, and Tati breaking the club record 4 in a single game, and 2 hat tricks now. Only a New York City player to do that. But I put that clip out, and I don't know if you guys saw my comment on it, because Maddie called it a kind of a dummy. And I've always thought, I don't think we've ever discussed this, so publicly I get to talk about it. I think guys that let the ball run and a goal is scored, if they're going to give out, MLS is the double assist league, right? Remember Thiago Martins, he played a square ball. He played a square ball to Santi Rodriguez, who had a beautiful cross on the Eber goal in Toronto. And Thiago Martins got an assist. Here, Magno draws the defender, jumps over everything is on purpose. And that's why Thiago Martinez, if you notice, his first touch was poor to set it up. He had all day to just prepare and drill that. But what do you think? If you're going to give out all these assists, shouldn't you get an assist for a dummy?
I believe so. I think so. I'm with you all the way. Especially, I mean, you identify very easily when those movements are on purpose, right?
Right.
Like in this case, I mean, he knew that ball wasn't for him, right? So he needs to jump because he's not going to get in the middle. He's not going to get on the way of that ball because he knows that ball is crossing to the other side because the space is there and because they have his teammate running back there. So he's not going to get in the way, and he is doing it on purpose. And we see those kind of players with that mentality doing it. Tati did it at some point.
Santi wasn't ready for it or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Tati did it against Seattle. That was the only goal. That was the goal Santi Rodriguez scored, and Tati drew the defense by letting the ball go through his legs, and that opened up the space for Santiago to come in and score.
That's even
and
more
I agree,
clear an assist. Now, Magno,
I know that you think that I don't agree with you on anything, Glenn, and you've made this point, but I fully agree with you on this. I think that as John said, it's purposeful. So, when you make a purposeful play like that involves a ball, although you don't touch it, then I think that you should get credit for it.
Right? You're actually playing the ball, even without touching it.
Without touching the ball, you're playing the ball because you're drawing a defender. You're making a play on the ball because they have to respect the fact that the ball is coming towards you, and they have to respect that. And so, I agree that if you're going to be giving out secondary assists, give out an assist for that.
Yeah,
and one of the things, Glenn, that always you analyze and coaches tell you the game is all about is exactly that: ball, space, and players, either your teammates or opposition players, right? So when you do those kind of moves, you have in consideration the three big elements of the game.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we solved that. We need to start a campaign. That's the only way it's going to change. And we've seen if you make something public enough and there's enough support, sometimes it can elicit change. I doubt this will work, but MLS is the second assist league, which I'm not even a strong proponent of giving, a secondary assist. I think, but if you're going to, then come on, man. Come on. Hey, I have to admit something. So right before Tati scored the first goal off the corner, which was sensational, Thiago Martins just moments earlier struck a header that was saved by Zach Math, and I have to admit I called it a goal from our vantage point. And Maddie he was nice about it. He was like, but I want to show people why I might see it as a goal. So this is the seating chart at Yankee Stadium, okay? And there's the soccer field, right? You see the green pitch there. Those blue dots, there's 3 of them.
Under my face, right?
Yeah, that's where we sit for these games. And if you look at that far left goal and far left corner, it's sometimes so darn difficult to actually see. So I want everybody to know our vantage point is from behind home plate when it's a baseball field, which is great for John Sterling and Susan Waldman calling the game. But on that call, I thought it was pretty funny. Matt laughed. Is that that week, John Sterling, I just gave it the old John Sterling. He called a home run that the left fielder caught.
Yes, so he's done that often.
But yeah, it's happened before. But it really made the headlines. So
it's hard. So
it was a John Sterling moment because it's so far away.
Hey, Glenn.
Yes, I'm not as old as John, but I'm getting there, I guess.
But your balls are bigger.
Say
your
what?
Your balls are bigger. Your balls are bigger.
Balls. Yes, soccer balls. Yes.
Oh my.
Let's keep this as a family show, Glenn, and not the Adams family.
That was the follow-up comment.
So
you guys jump in, right?
Did that come from the comment section? I missed that.
No. So anyway, a couple of things, and which makes it hard to broadcast at Yankee Stadium, and is the fact that you are literally 150 to 160 yards away from that goal. That's how far it is from that part of the press section. So where I sit, which is now a different area, I got tired of getting moved out of my section for visiting TV to come in. And so I said, hey, if you're going to move me, I'm moving permanently to the left side of the press box. And that's it. And they're like, all right, fine, thank you. And so I've moved all the way to the left side of the press box.
You got a better
and
view
so
of the
I
game
have,
now.
I'm much closer to midfield. I'm still very far, but I'm much closer to midfield.
Well, two
But yeah,
things there.
by the way, if it wasn't for McMahon, that's a 10-0 game easily. He was very good. You can't blame him on. Well, you can definitely blame him on the fourth.
He wasn't very. How was he very good?
He was. Look, there's nothing he could have done on most of those goals except for one, which he
two.
Which is the second one? I know the fourth one by Castellanos is definitely on him because his clearance is horrific. But if he saved, it should have been 3-0 by the time Castellanos scored that goal.
McMath was awful that game, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay.
Okay.
Thiago's first goal to make it 2-0. Do you see where he is positionally? How far off the line he is?
Well, he has to come out. He does
not have to come out. You trust your defender to push the player away to create a terrible angle for the shot. That was very poor judgment.
Did the defender do that?
What are you talking about? The keeper was out.
Because the defender wasn't going to do his job.
He didn't have to because he
didn't trust it. He was going to do his job, and he was right. He didn't do it.
No, you're wrong. That was a big goalkeeping error there. Okay, in my opinion.
Plus, you know what? That conversation that the game should be 4-0 after the first one, and if they score 3, it will be 12-0. That's nonsense. That's nonsense because every time you score a goal, there's a different kind of game.
Yeah.
So if they scored that one, maybe the game end at 2-0.
I'm just talking about. I'm talking about
goalkeeping. With you, by the way, 100%. My point being, McMahon saved clear goals early and often during the game. So if you want to say it could have been 3-0, 2-0, or whatever, he made a ton of really good saves. And I don't think, aside from one goal, Glenn says 2. I can't blame him on the other 4 or 5.
3. So
that was not the 3.
Well, did you see his positioning on Thiago's second goal? What was he doing? Why was he out there? He was in no man's land. He shouldn't have come off his line. He made poor judgment decisions on those 2 goals, and then he gave the ball to Tati Castellanos for the 6th goal of the game. So to me,
he tended to come out too often.
So it's 3 goals were on him. I mean, did he make 3 saves like that? He made 1 on Martins. I'm not sure what other saves you're talking about, but maybe I'm just not remembering them well. I'm really not remembering.
1 on I think it was 0-0.
Yep.
And it was Thiago who headed, I think, the ball. He saved it, sent it to the corner kick. Yep. Actually, Thiago was so mad that he's, ripped the ball.
He kicked the ball into the stands.
All the way to the stands, yeah.
Yeah. And then Martins, he stopped Martins as well. And then there was another one that he made a good save, and then the goal came. But New York City was basically, it was a continuation of the second half of the Seattle game, where New York City said, we're just going forward, we're going to attack, and they had much better luck than they did against Seattle because they created as many and as good opportunities against Seattle. They just couldn't put them in. Stephen Fry stood on his head, and they missed a couple of sitters as well. But they could have easily won that game by more than enough goals if they were to continue to play the way that they played.
Yeah,
especially Seattle gave them a million and one opportunities
for that CONCACAF elimination. So they were determined to show that they were not down, that they were keep on going, and yes, that they were hurt. And the only way to do it was to be, as perfect or as close as perfect to possible, and that means 0 on your goal and as much as you can score.
Yeah, the goal they gave up. And I don't want to take away from Thiago's finishes, by the way. They were good finishes. I'm just saying McMath was out of position, and Castellanos, the ball was deflected, but it was on goal, so no own goal. He gets his 4th, happy that.
Tati, 31 goals in the calendar year. And it's funny because it's exactly the same day from April 17 to April 17. because remember the
Wow.
2021 season started late because of
Yeah.
we're still dealing with COVID. So the first game was on April 17. That was 2-1 against
Wow.
DC United, and Tati scored on that game. So from that game until this past weekend, April 17, he had 31 goals in all competitions for NYCFC.
I used your statistic and gave you some credit on that, John, when it came through. I appreciate that. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. But that's a goal scorer right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
there's
Of course.
little
Yeah,
and
he's in that calendar year. He's up there with Lewandowski and all those top goal scorers in the world. Of course, calendars is a little different and competition is a little different, but in the sense of the calendar year, so April 17 through April 17, he's up there.
We do understand that Lewandowski has tougher defenses to deal with than Tati does.
No, but not only that. I mean, MLS plays, less in terms of the calendar year, April to April. Lewandowski plays a little bit more games because he is in other international competitions. The international competition for NYCFC wasn't that long. That kind of stuff that you can take into account when you ask or when you're reviewing the amount of games and goals.
So let's go back to training for a moment. And I thought this was a good site, which we could talk over. But this is Anton Tinnerholm, just doing some flexibility, and these kinds of plyometric drills. If you have an Achilles injury, you're not doing it. So he is pretty much cleared for any sort of movement. No contact yet, for sure. But that was one. And then there was one other thing here where he was working out with a ball. Side to side, little one-touch passing. So Tinnerboom, yep, looking pretty good at training today. Tinnerboom, that's what they call him. I don't call him that when I see him. I call him Anton.
Well, you just did.
Well, that's what.
Anyway, he told me that he was. So this is 2 weeks ago, right? Or almost 2 weeks ago. He told me that he's going to be back. He should be ready by June, late June, probably early July, but mostly late June, which means that he's literally months ahead of schedule because they didn't have him penciled into the lineup until somewhere in August. So it's really good news for New York City to be able to have him back.
Well,
it's just
the other thing,
forward.
John. Just one more, John. Here, he said after training, he said he has after training today, so 2 weeks hence. From when Roberto spoke to him, he's got an important test tomorrow. He said, and it's not a written test; it's toe raises, and it measures his calf, and the everything is muscular percentage, and that's how they make these determinations as to when you can come back and really go at it.
The amount of muscle that he lost, you can say it, the amount of muscle that you can measure, and the difference between when he started the process of healing and the process now. And then the strength of that muscle that he still has on him. So that's why I'm saying seeing him today is just one step on that process. Of course, for him is like a huge relief because smelling the grass, getting the boots on is just a motivation to keep on going. But it means nothing in the long picture. It changed nothing because at the end of the day, the process is the process. And yes, players may want to push that process because they feel their bodies and they understand bodies that more probably than the staff around them. But the work and the job of the staff is holding them accountable for that process because you don't want to risk.
No, this is an injury. They said that they were going to be ultra careful about it. And he's also 30 years old, so he's not still has plenty left, obviously, but he's not an early 20s kind of guy where maybe
the body
you would tend to heal a little
way.
bit. Yeah.
And there's another important factor in all of this is that Tavon Gray is playing very well, so there's absolutely no reason to rush him back. It's not like you have an urgent position to fill because you don't have enough depth there. Tavon has done very, very well. I don't think he's Anton Tinnerholm, but he's done very, very well over there, and he gets better every single game. And so you have absolutely no rush to bring Tinderholm back. We have to remember New York City won a championship with Tavon Gray at right back.
And I have a question there for you, Glenn,
Yeah.
because this is on the team and maybe on that process that we were talking is penciling for him. Now that there's the MLS Pro Next team, I will say the most ideal scenario is that whenever he or anybody else is physically recovered and physically, free to play, they will have some minutes, probably that progression of having 30, 60 minutes on MLS Pro Next, and then they're ready to be with the first team.
Well, there's one caveat there.
Is that something that you know it?
Don't know it.
I mean,
don't know it.
Exactly.
But David Lee has said that team can and potentially will be utilized for players returning from injury. Not a guarantee. Yes. What's your caveat, Roberto?
It's an Achilles tendon injury, and it's turf over in St. John's. So I don't know if you really want to run them on turf first, because we believe there's a more of a propensity of injury on that type of surface rather than regular grass if it's a decent surface.
Yeah. No, I think that's a valid point. It's a valid point. So maybe if they have a road match on grass,
Roberto,
then he gets
came through.
Roberto came through. Hey, there's another guy at training that played the full training session and probably played his best match since the unfortunate news about a blood clot last year, and I'm talking about Keaton Parks. So I've got a couple of things from Keaton here, which will be the full interview will be heard at halftime on the New York City FC Network coming up at the TFC match from Citi Field this Sunday. But here's a couple of things from Parks. First, I focused on this most recent game where, here's what I thought.
It was a game, just observing the way you play, that you looked as smooth and as comfortable maybe as we've seen you. So did you feel the same way?
I felt pretty good. I felt the best I have all season. But at the same time, I still feel like I have that much more to give. So I'm going to keep working on it and really get to my full potential, my 100%. But I did feel good, and I'm happy that it showed. And obviously the team helps me play good too. So.
What's the biggest thing missing from your game? Is it acceleration? Is it the ability to go right or left? What aspect of your game is not up to your standard?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint. I think it could just be mentally. Like I said, I talked to the coaches, and they said I've been performing well, and especially this last game, they're happy with the performance. But something for me mentally, like it just didn't seem, or I guess I didn't feel like myself. Maybe I felt a little bit slow. So I just think I can give that much more.
So one thing he's going through also is he still does rehab every day, some more intense than others, on the calf area. So it's kind of preventative. It's both preventative, but also trying to enhance that area, because as you can tell, he's not 100% certain about things just yet. And that kind of plays into the question I asked him. Did this sort of injury, which was, it's beyond an injury, it was a blood clot, and it was something that had to be looked at seriously. Has that changed him at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Even like when I feel like the slightest things now, it almost scares me a little bit more than it used to. Thinking that it could be more serious than it is, like this was. But at the same time, like now that I'm like feeling very good again back on the field, like I'm extremely grateful. I'm just happy for any time I get on the field and in games, and happy to be with the team. I missed a big part of our season last year, so I'm just happy to be back.
Yeah, that run to the MLS Cup. And he said he was watching both games that went to penalties. He was sitting with the families, and he said it was kind of fun just to watch everybody's reactions during the PKs. But so Keaton Parks, I thought he looked very good, and you heard it from him. He's not there yet, but he's an important cog in this for sure.
Let me interject something. I mean, I'm nowhere close to an athlete in any way, shape, or form. I just want to put that out there before anything else. At the same time, as athletes, I've hurt myself and I've
Yeah,
had operations.
you are an
I mean,
athlete
I
because
hurt my knee.
you got the surgery,
I
so you must be an athlete.
He runs into
I'm definitely
trouble.
not an athlete. I'm just a clumsy human being who's gotten hurt. So I've had 2 operations. I had a minor operation for what was it? My meniscus. Also, I stretched out my ACL and MCL and twisted my patella tendon in a 90-degree angle, which was fun. Did that, and after that operation, which was just a very for my brother-in-law, a simple operation that took 20 minutes to get everything in order. It was one of those what do you call them? Arthroscopic surgery. It was very quick, and all of that. But I mean, recovery was long. Recovery was 8 weeks on that, and I really hit PT really, really hard to try to get that knee back into shape. But I never trusted it again. And that's what the point being that I never really trusted it. So even though I'm being told, yeah, you can jump and you can do all these things, I would always favor my right leg, thinking that something was going to go wrong. And then in 2019, when I broke my my tibia and my fibula, I mean, that was it's a horrific injury, and it becomes tougher to trust that as well. So I know the mentality of that and what he's saying, but at the same time, I know that he, as an athlete, will get over that and won't even think about it. There's going to come a time where it won't even be part of his thought process anymore, and that he'll be able to get through that. It's different for somebody like me, but for somebody like him, he'll get through that because there's lots of evidence of that happening with other athletes that these things have happened to before, and he'll get through it. But I fully understand where he's coming from, because sadly, I've been there.
Well, I think that's what Anton Tinnerholm's going to go through with an injury like he's had. I've coached athletes that have had the Achilles surgery, and it takes a long time. People coming back from an ACL, they need that first tackle without the brace on before they feel like, woof, okay, it held. It's still tight. It didn't re-injure, and no, it's and that
it goes to the mental side too.
Well, Keaton said that. He said it's he thinks it's psychological right now more than anything.
Of course, exactly. Look, I used to have a teammate that he broke his leg. No, I'm sorry. He broke his arm, right arm, in a tackle. He just fall wrongly, broke his arm. He healed, and for a couple of games, probably 5-6 games, he was a forward. And when he was running to get the ball and he felt the defender really close, he just breaks. He didn't run, just out of fear that he will have the same kind of contact and he will fall. And he needed to work on that to feel comfortable that he will have an impact and nothing will happen to his arm.
Remember James Sands, he had an arm injury. I think it was a fracture. And then he came back. And I think the determination was he probably came back a little bit too soon because he favored it on a collision instead of using his hand and arm to prevent the full fall. He landed completely on his shoulder blade and then had that collarbone issue.
Right.
So, and ended up being back-to-back injuries. So yeah, it's injuries can, and if you're thinking about it and you're playing, that's it almost doesn't make sense, but it will until you have that first
and it all
collision,
goes in a different direction with every single person. It's just every person handle it in a different way, even with the same professionals, even with the same treatments, even with the same psychological help. Every person is different on that process.
So coming up is TFC, and Bob Bradley's crew seemed to have turned it around a bit.
You can see him out there, right?
Huh?
You can see him out there.
Out where?
Behind me, Bob.
Up there. It's up next to the books.
Oh,
all
above
the way
your
up
head?
next to the books.
Yeah,
above your head. All right. Do I have any Bob Bradleys? I just have Bob Marley. That's not Bob Bradley, but
that's
Bob Marley.
Close enough.
Close enough. I don't know. Can you see Bob Marley if we go to this shot?
Nah, if you go to that shot, you see it.
Yeah, there he is.
On your right side, yeah.
But so listen, Bradley can coach. It was almost maybe you wondered how this was all going to go, but they're playing hard, which was not always the case last year, and they're unbeaten in 4, but they've won 3 of their last 4, And so it's a team that's coming into Citi Field with certainly a higher level of confidence than probably when New York City went there. But Toronto, that win really set them on a positive path, I think, against City.
Yeah, as an opposition, you need to keep an eye on Osorio in his situation. He is coming back from a kind of a injury, but looks like he will make it through and play on the weekend, because he is really important for them, for Toronto. And at the same time, I want to praise the way that Bob is integrating those young talents for that team. I mean, Nelson is playing in 2 or 3 different positions, helping a lot. Same thing with Petrasso. And then bringing what Jimenez, can bring to the team. Jimenez was not a huge name in Spain or in Europe. He had a decent career, but he's scoring for Toronto, and he's scoring in bunches and helping them. And I think they're figuring out how to work on that system that we all know he's going to play with, that 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. That's Bob Bradley. And this is a team that is going to pressure, that is going to run every single ball, that is going to try to get as fast as possible to the opposition goal. That's the fundamentals of the Bob Bradley way of seeing the game.
All right.
Yeah, 4 goals in 7 games for Jimenez so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's done really well. I mean, if we remember the last game, Petrasso and Schaffelberg teamed up against Tavon Gray and made his life miserable in that game. So New York City, I'm sure, will be trying to figure out a way to stop them together. But, New York City has some pretty big issues in the back, and we'll address that in a second. But I also saw most of the second half of that game, and Philadelphia peppered them. Philadelphia was on the front foot for that entire second half. I have no idea how they didn't tie the game and go ahead and win it. And, credit to Toronto for holding on. Bono was very good. I thought he made a lot of really good saves. But they had opportunities galore in that game, and they couldn't finish them. And importantly, that was the last unbeaten team in Major League Soccer, Philadelphia.
Right.
They were the last
Correct.
unbeaten team. Toronto took that away from them.
Yeah. All right. The TFC. So, and that Schaffelberg, Petrasso, was that the Italian dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Petrasso. Yeah.
He, you're right about that overload. And it reminds me of, maybe not to the same extent, but the first leg Seattle, when the Roldan brothers had a field day on Amundson's side. And what Ronnie said in the pregame to me, and I think he said it to others as well, but it was just poorly defended because there was a lack of energy to provide the numbers on the switch to get there. So he thought it was, the way he put it, we know how to do it. And they did it better against the Roldans in the second leg. And I would suspect that they'll be more prepared and more ready, whatever they need to be, for Toronto FC. So we've got a question here from Corey Clayton, who follows us closely, has listened a lot. And Corey, what's happening? And this has to do with the transfer window.
So I'm staying quiet. The question is for you and Rob.
Say what?
It's for you to stop
I'm
it.
staying quiet. The question is for Rob and you.
Oh,
you're a pain. John, let me just say this publicly too.
And
John,
put John on it because he gets very sensitive on this stuff.
I was gonna say, John, you're a pain in the arse. Okay, I just want to make that clear. And then here it is.
And
again.
I know it. Tell me something I don't know.
Could really use depth at fullback and center back. I'll address this first, Roberto and John, and then you see what you guys think. Nothing's happening at a fullback in the transfer market, and it comes from Ronnie Dylas saying the following, and I'm paraphrasing, but we will kill the kids if we bring somebody in, because he's thinking Tinnerholm's coming back. Until then, you've got Tavon Gray, who's got to hold the fort, and then Andres Jason possibly, and he was referring to Jason at the time because he was playing some fullback. We haven't seen him there lately. In fact, we saw Nico Acevedo go out there in favor of Jason. So I can't imagine the staff is particularly pleased with Jason at fullback. I'm sure they think of him more as a wingback, and they haven't played in that manner in a while. Amundsen on the left, I think they feel confident with him, and they have a belief in Chris Gloucester. So that's my feeling on the fullback. Nothing's happening there based on Ronnie's words. And then central defense, I mean, I don't think you just brought in a DP for that position. He may not be playing up to your standard. Not when I say I mean supporters, media has eviscerated him on his performances, which haven't been particularly great yet. But he's a DP.
Better,
you brought him in, and
you gotta let him grow into the position.
Let me just complete the thought on Corey's. We need depth at center back and fullback. Chanot's coming back. Martins is not injured seriously. He'll be back soon. And you've got Collins, and then you've got Vuk Latinovic, who may very well start on Sunday. So if you're saying that
Owusu
and Owusu, the homegrown. So
right,
you're just not going to spend money there. That's my opinion. Okay, the rest is your guys.
Okay, I agree with
that's
Glenn.
the main point, right?
Yeah,
that's the main point. There's
agree.
no reason to spend and not to panic and just bring someone for the sake of it, because that's the big mistake.
Correct.
Right, and you got to give Vuk Latinovic a chance to show that game against Nashville was in one-off bad game, as opposed to it's a bad player. So you got to give him a chance, and he's gotten a chance to play a little bit with NYCFC 2, which helps. He's come in, in a couple of games, to help in the back towards the end of games. So he's gotten a little bit of a chance. Now he's going to get a chance to start again for the first time since that Nashville game, where he and Alfredo Morales were a center back pair, and that did not work out very well. And I don't think you're seeing Alfredo Morales in the back, unless it's an absolute emergency.
That was difficult. You bring Latinovic in, and you don't have a Collins or someone or a Chanot like that next to him to just help guide him. You've got Morales, who's a veteran player, but not in that position. And we don't know that Latinovic is starting yet this Sunday, but the assumption could be that's the way they're going to have to go.
Also, I'd be remiss if I don't mention this, okay, on this podcast.
Go ahead.
Alex Collins is
a stud,
blowing the league away with how well he's playing defensively. He has been fabulous, and the guy deserves credit. The guy deserves to have his name shown in lights, because he has been absolutely fantastic. He gets better every single game. He has grown since he's come to New York City. He's earned a starting position for the Peruvian national team. He earned it by his work, by his mentality, and by everything he's done. And he plays better and better for New York City every single game, to the point of where I'm starting to get a little bit concerned that somebody in Europe is going to say, hey, we'll give you $15 million for him, and New York City would sell him. And I'd be heartbroken for the team, because you don't want to see that guy leave, because he's really, really good. Of course, if he does want to leave, then you don't want to get in his way, mind you. But I think he's going to be a very hot commodity after the World Cup.
He's 29. He's not going back to Europe.
I know, but trust me, there's a lot of teams that could use a 29-year-old who's going to help them defensively.
Not happening.
Why? Because he's 29?
Yeah. Show me a scout that is going to come to offer a player of that age is going to be taken seriously in Europe, in the big leagues. Period. It's just the game. I know, I understand. I agree with everything you say, and I love the way Alex has been growing. And I remember those conversations when he started to play really well for New York City FC, and we were asking him, what's going on with Peru? Why they don't call you? And he was like, hey, I can't do anything. I do much. I play my games. I'll do everything, but they don't even give me a chance. And when they gave him a chance, and you know what? Not only that, but he was in charge of changing the idea that playing in MLS was a bad situation for Peruvian players, because he showed that he could hold his fort, win that position, and contribute to the team. And then other players started to come, and now we see that the Peruvian national team has in every single camp 6, 7, 5 players from MLS. And that is on Alex Collins.
Well done.
Because he showed that it is possible. But It's just the matter of the game. He's not going
It's a
to Europe at 30
prejudice.
years old, period.
It's a prejudice that people have against this league, thinking that you don't have to be good defensively to be able to play here. It's just good in general to be able to play, and that you'll shine anyway. It's bullshit. I mean, people, and sorry for the cursing, but it is. And we hear this all the time, and people argue against MLS all the time, that people that come here come to bury their freaking careers. It's idiotic. It's people that don't understand the league, don't see the players, but they talk about this often. You see it on TV, you hear it on radio, you see it on Twitter, and they keep on saying it and saying and saying, and a lot of people wind up believing it. And then you show them, that players such as Alex Callens not only goes to Peru, but improves their defense, changes the way the team is. Because I think it was in Copa America where they were getting blown away, and then all of a sudden they insert him into the lineup, and the whole defense changes, and Peru all of a sudden goes and gets out of its group. And
he wasn't started against Brazil with Neymar. He was started against Argentina with Messi, and Peru did a great job on defense.
Yes.
And of course, it's not on him. The defense is the whole system, right? From the way the forward is defending all the way through.
Of course.
But he was there being a solid rock on that back line. The way he is, when anybody sees, plus we got to have this. He is a very healthy guy. So his dedication to the game is so much that his body is well taken care of. He's not injured. He's not prone to injuries. He had an injury last year, I think. But until then, he was not missed one game of his career in MLS, not 1 minute.
If you remember, in his first season, he didn't miss a minute of play, and then he got that red card in Columbus.
Right.
And they wound up losing that game 4-1. So, he's been lights out. He's been fantastic. And I think that people that look at this league have to look at him and say, all right, MLS isn't the place where you come to ruin your career, but you can actually enhance your career.
Well, he did it. He came from the second division in Spain.
Yeah.
He wasn't in Spain's second division, and he wasn't, Peru didn't have him on his radar, not even the national team. No one, not the media, not the fans, they forgot about him, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he started to be in the mix when he was playing here.
One of the things that people don't see, okay, because they believe that the league is non-competitive, right? They believe, and we've talked about this, that they bring in bad defenders and bad goalies on purpose so we can up the entertainment value, right? This is talked about a lot by major pundits, okay? We're not talking about random fans from the middle of America or Mexico or whatever, and this is what they freaking believe, all right? But it's only partly, this personal prejudice towards the league and trying to make their league look better. 1, 2, they've never been to a practice. They've never been to an MLS practice, okay? And seeing how guys are fighting for their positions every single practice, that they've got to give out everything that they have, because if not, they're going to lose their starting position, or they're going to wind up losing minutes. And these guys never see it. They think it's all a walk in the park and that nobody gives a crap. And it's anything but that. It's a total lack of respect, because they don't really cover the league. They don't follow the league. And they really shouldn't be talking about the league, because they don't do any of that. So, but they will, and they're not going to be stopped. And as a matter of fact, they're going to be encouraged to talk about it, especially when Seattle plays Pumas in 2 weeks. A lot of that is going to continue.
Okay. Yep. That point's been made over and over and over again. But I understand I understand your point. Yeah, but the Mexican media is not listening to our podcast either. So you're just gonna have to keep plugging away on social media. That's right. You keep plugging away on social media, and we'll do our thing here.
You can extract this and put it out there.
This will be, by the way, anybody that happens to be watching or listening while they're cooking dinner, whatever they're doing right now, this will be published as a podcast. And WFAN will put it on their website, and we'll have all that. And it's just a wonderful thing. Just a couple of other things here before we break. So the managers who are gone, Matias Almeida out at San Jose, and I'd like to actually maybe spend more time on Hernan Losada, since he's in the Eastern Conference. But John, I do know that you followed Almeida pretty closely with San Jose, and kind of interesting. Tommy Thompson. I got that right? Tommy Thompson.
Yeah.
put out on his Instagram how much he and his staff meant to him and changed his life, and wasn't specific, but obviously they were
He learned
influences on him.
Spanish. He's a fluent Spanish speaker because of Almeida and that staff.
Okay.
That was one of the things that he did.
Okay, is he a better player? I mean, that's great. And
he thinks I think he was more talking about that he made him a better human being, more so than a better player.
His post was that, I mean, these guys changed my life forever. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Didn't say his soccer life. He's just talking about his life.
No, and that's
beyond the field.
Those are considerations I think are pretty important.
Personal.
No question. No question. But the inconsistency in results on the field, and whether Almeida really wanted to be there. I mean, all these sorts of things along the way. I mean, it's so he and now Chris Leach, who has had various roles, is the interim manager for now, right? Is that correct?
No, it's not him. He's still general manager. He was interim manager a while back, but
well, who's the interim manager?
Before Almeida, but now he's general manager. And who?
I think he's
Ralston.
No. Alex Covello.
Right.
All right. And
Alex Covello, who has been an assistant and who has been around the organization for a few years now. He is now the interim coach. He was the one who coached the game last night in US Open Cup, and he's going to stay with that post. And Leach, if you follow what Leach said, most likely he is probably going to finish the season. I mean, because they said we're not in a rush. We're not going to hire the first, candidate that we see. We're going to have a thorough search, and they taking it slowly, and they should. At the end of the day, they should, because this was the point that I was to start to make when we were talking about Matias at the beginning, Glenn. And those who follow the league and San Jose Earthquakes as an organization, and those who follow Matias Almeida's career, we had the fear that this will finish the way it did when he was introduced as a coach. We wanted to be successful. Like, hopefully this is true. Hopefully this organization is ready to give everything that they are actually saying they will give, and do whatever they're saying they will do, so Matias can have that project going. But if San Jose keeps being San Jose and Matias keeps being Matias, this is not going to end fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because Matias didn't change a bit, and San Jose changed probably for the run. I don't know. But the point is, all the promises that were made were not there at the end of the day. And Matias felt like he had a project in his hands. He was tied to a long contract without the tool that he was promised to work with. And if you check, yes, they revamped the roster. They changed players during those seasons. But go and check how those players came in. Free transfers, loans. 80% of players that play for Matias before and are playing for him because basically what they're doing is, okay, let's get into an agreement here, right? You do us a favor, you come in, and we do a favor for you because you are out of contract and you have one or two options, and being here is a good option for you. So it's easy for us, easy for you. And at the end of the day, you're not creating a solid, deep, strong roster. You are filling holes here and there with those kind of players. And it's tough because if you don't have the money, you don't have the resources, you don't have to, and San Jose can be more than that, but we know that they're not willing to be more than that.
Right. So John Miller, the owner, doesn't really put a lot of money into it. As a matter of fact, he also owns the Oakland A's, and he doesn't put any money into them. They just had their worst opening day attendance-wise in the history of the franchise. I think it was 14,000 people. So he's having problems with all of his teams. because he's more seemingly interested in real estate buys than anything else. He's also the owner of Celtic. This guy isn't poor, by the way. He's worth somewhere in the vicinity of $3.5 billion. So he's not poor, but he's also one of the owners that puts the least amount of resources into his team. Now, people think of San Jose as a small market team. This is insane. San Jose is closer to San Francisco than Santa Clara. Now, why do I mention Santa Clara? Santa Clara is a place where they built a stadium for the for the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, that is much farther away than San Jose is. San Francisco is a major television market. It is a major market in general, and they should be spending as a major market. In the first 3 years, I believe, of the new stadium, they sold out every single game. 18,000 people were always there. And because of the fact that they've let this franchise wane and go down, even with the hiring of Almeida, but not bringing in people, right? Not bringing in good players, then, people have started leaving. Their last game, not the U.S. Open Cup game, but the one that they tied 2-2 on the weekend, they only had 10,000 people there. I mean, that is insane for that market, but they've earned it. They've earned it by the way that they've run that team and by not spending on players and having a very, very small mentality. I've made this point time and time again because of Liga, because of Champions League and everything else. MLS not only has to loosen their salary cap and make the cap higher, they've got to elevate the floor. And if this league wants to really be competitive and make all their markets really competitive, then they have to have a ceiling. Fine, I get that, but they must have a floor. And the floor has to be somewhere of 80 to 85% of what the ceiling is. You can't have teams spending $20 million and other teams spending $8 million. You can't have that. It's not good. And teams are going to go and fall by the wayside, and then they're going to wind up moving, and fans are going to lose their franchises. All these things happening because you don't invest in teams. So this is one of the things that fundamentally has to change in this league.
And it's not, Glenn, it's not that, I'm defending Matias and it's all on the organization. I mean, for a marriage to go sour, you need two people, right? So it's the same thing here. This kind of relationships, you need both sides. And I think Matias should, in a way, find the legal element to get out of that contract as soon as he saw that the promises were not there, right? Instead of keep pushing and trying and fixing holes and putting himself on that just because he had that contract, right? And then he changed a little bit of that man-to-man pressure on the field. He learned a lot. I mean, he recognized that the experience in MLS made him a better coach because he understood some elements of how to change his perception, his system, but when you got that so much of a requirements and so much of pressure on your players, and you don't have a huge big roster, then you making a lot of mistakes because at the end of the day, those players are getting tired, injured, and not reacting the way that you want them to react because you're using the same players over and over and over again. So that hurts the team too in terms of results. But I was saying early this morning, I mean, these two cases of Matias and Losada, they both have a lot of elements in common. And one of those elements too is that they were brought in not believing in what they were doing with them as a coaches, but to renew the image of the organization on their fans. Remember, Jesse Fioranelli was the guy who hired Matias, and he was let go on the first year, at the end of the first year, I think. And bringing Matias was a way for Fioranelli to hold on to her seat because he was making mistake after mistake with players, coaches in San Jose. So bringing a name like Matias, helped him in a way to hold his post and wait a little bit and see if that idea in that process will give him some kind of fruits, right? At the end of the day, he left, and Matias was let go with a different kind of of general manager and a more like institutional structure for him to work with, and so everybody was on the same boat as like him in some ways.
Well,
Same thing with Losada. I mean, he came in and he was told that he would change anything. And if you remember the first, I don't know, 3-4 months of his tenure, he was always saying, I was brought in here to change absolutely everything. And everything here has to change. And he may change the bus and the fitness. And this year, the all the health staff around the club. But at the same time, they have so much of a strong belief in the way they do things that everybody has to be in the same boat. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Well, John,
so if they will bring in just for that, it's going to go sour at some point.
Well, I've wanted to talk to Losada for my Sirius XM, the Coaching Academy show.
Right.
He's got time now.
Well, no, I did end up speaking to him, and I had requested. Sirius XM FC was doing an MLS preview show each day on all the different teams. So I requested, if you do DC United, can you get me Losada? And I got it. So I want to play a brief clip, John, because I think this kind of illuminates what you're saying a bit. And you'll see Hernan Losada, who was fired this morning by DC United. And you'll see Andy Snakovsky, who's my producer, who for some reason left his camera on. But here we go. Hernan, last year it had two sides, really. I mean, there was, in many ways, it was an exciting year for the franchise and the supporters. But then you also came up 1 point short of a playoff berth. So mixed emotions there?
Yes, of course. We worked very hard to reach that goal, and we came short 1 point. And at the same time, like you say, was a very exciting season. My first one at MLS, and the first one where we created a lot of changes compared with the last 10, 12, 15 seasons in DC United. And the goal for the first year was definitely not only try to do our best to achieve the playoff, but also to create a new culture, to create a new environment, a new style of play. And I think we did it. The fans were excited to watch our games. We had one of the best records at home. We were the fourth best offensive team in the league. And that's the type of football we want to play. And my goal was that the day of tomorrow, when any neutral supporter was watching at the TV any DC United game, that you could identify which team was us and what kind of soccer we were playing. So from that point of view, very glad, very happy with the progress, a progress that I didn't expect to be this quick. Now, of course, we need to put that progress into results.
Didn't expect to be this quick. And now he's given 6 games in 2022, 2 wins, 4 losses at home. He mentioned home, just 1 win in 4 matches. And the most recent match, and the one that probably sealed his fate, up 2-0 on Austin. They scored 3 goals. You thought it was over before the Austin game?
Yeah, it's just because of the relationships. For them, relationships are super important. Like I said, they ask a lot of those players. Losada, for example, the first thing the players do when they come into the facilities is wait, every single day. And they're being told what to eat, what not to eat, when to rest, what not to, everything. They try to control every single element. And for some players, that is huge. You're going to hear from players in the coming hours and days from DC United saying, they made me a better professional. They made me grow. I understand now that this is the way if I want a 15 years career, that kind of stuff, right? But for others, it's just, I need my liberty. I need my freedom. I need to do something on my own. I don't need a voice in my ear every single minute of my day with what I'm doing, because on that facility, for example, they have schedules to the minute, basically. This and that and that and that and that. It's pressure for some people. And then for that, again, you need everybody on the same boat. And in the organization, you have changes. and you don't have the belief that this is the way, then relationships go sour, not only with players, with the organization, and then you start seeing in the way they speak on the media, right? Instead of talking about the young guys and the way they are doing this process, they started to talk about, complaints about the field they train on, complaints about the travel. Those elements tell you that the relationships are going sour.
Mm-hmm. Well, so 2 coaches down in MLS, and Chad Ashton looks like he'll be the interim the rest of the way for DC United. And we didn't mention that Wando is going to be an assistant for San Jose. So,
yeah, for San Jose. Let me add something just quickly. Okay, Stephen Goff of the Washington Post has a very good thread that he got from the which soccer pod is this? Hold on, the Z Soccer podcast, which is Julian Gressel and Fabian Evers that they do.
It's
and
a good one.
Gressel plays for DC. Yeah. Talks about it, and I think it's a really good thread that you should read. And it talks about a lot of the stuff that John was talking about, the fact that he made them better professionals and all of that. But at the same time, he trained them so hard into the limit that they were this close to getting injured, and a lot of people wound up getting injured. It thought that it was a little bit too much, and again, a lot of people bought into it at first. Not everybody bought into it at the end, and it became a big issue. And when you start having that sort of issue, and then you're not having results to go along, if you're winning all the time, then maybe you put up with that and you can do that. But when all of a sudden you're not, it's a big issue. Yeah. And then you have guys like Kai Kamara who scored 2 goals and then gets kicked out of a game, and one of the yellows is because it took his shirt off, and it's freaking idiotic that happens. And they held a 2-0 lead until the 80th minute, and then they allowed 3 goals. So the team absolutely lost concentration, because even with 10 men, you should be able to see out a 2-0 game, but they weren't able to do it. I mean, they just totally lost the boat. And coaching, has to be partly responsible for that. It can't just be on the players on the field.
Remember what he said, Glenn? As soon as he got here, he said, and he got into the preseason, I got players that did not look as a professionals. They were all out of shape.
I know.
Remember?
Yeah, I don't. No, I remember you were on the first press conference.
Threw Ben Olsen under a bus and ran over him, and then he backed it up.
But the point is that, they brought him for that. They gave him the keys of the kingdom. That's what he said.
It's different than the last 10, 12, 15 years, as he put it in that. All right, guys. Well, we look forward to the weekend when New York City plays host to Toronto on Sunday, 4:45, our airtime on the New York City FC Network, English and Spanish radio, Citi Field. So a new venue to broadcast from in Queens. So I'm sure they're all excited over there at Corona Park and the surrounding area. That New York City's coming.
I need Jackson Heights to show up. I need Roosevelt Avenue to close down at 4:30 and walk over to the stadium and show up.
And bring some of your great food and bring it up to the
Corona.
God, yeah. I think we're doing that, by
Elmer's,
the way. After the
Corona,
game,
Elmer's, East Elmer's, Jackson Heights. Everybody Heights? Should be there.
Get there.
We're going to go get some churrascos or something. We're going to go do something.
And just news from training today, Maxi Morales, Maxime Chenot, and Thiago Martins all training on the side, not with the full team. So that's it for me, Glenn Crooks. There's John Rojas. There's Roberto Abramowitz, Soccer in the City, live on a Wednesday evening. And again, this will be republished as a podcast for you and available on WFAN. And I'm sure John will be the first to tweet it out. Roberto will be very close behind. So look out for it then. Guys, thanks a lot. Have a great night. And we'll talk to you soon.